Good afternoon, friends. I pray that God is blessing you with a great Thursday. Welcome to 5 Minutes with Luke, sponsored by the Boonville Church of Christ as one of its outreach programs, simply encouraging you, especially during this time of isolation, to continue your study of the Word of God. And we are in Luke chapter 13. We are continuing our understanding or our study of the parable of the fig tree where a man came seeking fruit on a fig tree planted in his vineyard, understanding that physical illustration helps us understand the lesson that the God of heaven is a seeking God. So as we dig deeper in lesson 14 of our study of this parable, we have understood that the God of heaven is seeking fruit in our lives. He is seeking spiritual fruit. So we found ourselves, I'm sorry, I still punched the wrong button. But in Galatians 5, verse 22, when we understand that the fruit of the Spirit, literally, God is looking at my life. If I'm living by the Spirit, then my life is going to display the fruit of the Spirit. If I'm bearing fruit on the fig tree of my life, just as surely as that man went to that garden and looked and was expecting to find fruit hanging there, God is looking into my heart and my life, and He is expecting fruit to be there in my life. The fruit of the Spirit, Galatians 5:22, is love, is joy, is peace, and now number 4 is long suffering. You know, you and I need to be careful that we don't joke with that word and say, "Oh yeah, definitely, I have long suffering," because let me tell you, friend, I've been suffering a long time. You know, that's really not funny. You know why? Because that's not what that word is talking about at all. When I look, that word long suffering, if I look that up in the dictionary, it means kind of what you think it is: long and patient endurance, um, an endurance of injury or trouble or provocation. In other words, you've just been hanging in there and keep putting up with for a long period of time. For long, I thought that that's what that word meant for a long time. But when I studied just a little bit deeper, and I learned that the fruit of the Spirit, one of those fruits is long suffering, and I dig a little deeper, I understand that that's the dictionary meaning of our English word long suffering, long and patient endurance, is not really quite what that word means. In fact, when I dig a little deeper, the Greek means this word has the idea of self restraint of a person who is able to avenge himself or herself, but chooses not to, refrains from doing so. In fact, in the Greek, this word long suffering has the idea of the quality of heart, the quality of a person's life, um, who um, uses self restraint before action. In other words, I think about what I'm going to do. If I am bearing the fruit of long suffering, then, according to Paul, then I don't act just because I can. I refrain from doing so, and I use that restraint before jumping into action. So, in my life, then, that's a little different, isn't it? So, if my life is bearing the fruit of long suffering, what does that look like? Well, in Ephesians 4, if I actually start with verse 1, therefore, therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, this is Paul writing here through inspiration, I beseech you to walk worthy of the calling with which you've been called. How, Paul? Well, verse 2, with all lowliness and gentleness, with long suffering, bearing with one another in love, with long suffering. As I am living the life that I am supposed to be living, if my life bearing the fruit of long suffering, I don't just act because I can. I don't just lash out and avenge myself because, hey, it's my right to do that. But if my life bears the fruit of long suffering, then I show restraint because that's my nature. That's my first nature. Why? Because I'm living by the Spirit. And when I look a little further in Colossians 1, and I'm sorry, that's supposed to be a 1 on your screen. Chapter 1, verse 9, for this reason, we also, since the day we heard it, do not cease to pray for you and to ask that you may be filled with the knowledge of his will in all wisdom and spiritual understanding, so that you may walk worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing him. Now watch verse this. Being fruitful in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God, strengthened with all might according to his glorious purpose, for all patience and long suffering with joy. Did you notice what he said? That if you and I increase in the knowledge of God's will, then we increase in wisdom and we increase in spiritual understanding. And when we do that, what happens? We are fruitful in every good work, and we are strengthened according to God's power in all patience and all what? Long suffering. I learned restraint, and I don't just lash out and take action just because I can. Friends, thank you for listening today. I pray that your life bears the fruit of long suffering